My guest right now is somebody that I have been watching since I was a little kid, growing up with him playing for Shirley Berkeley in the GMWA chapter when my father used to take me around. He is none other than the Reverend Willie B. Allen. He plays at Truth, Righteousness, and Love Ministries. He's a long-standing member of the GMWA nationally and locally, and he is being honored this year at our Musicians and Singers Fellowship on January the 22nd at the All Saints Banquet and Conference Center in Hyattsville, Maryland. Reverend Allen, how you doing?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm doing great. I'm blessed just to be here.
Amen. And although you're Reverend, you always tell us to call you Willie because that's what we've been knowing you all our lives. But I want to give you your kudos. Who is your pastor at Truth, Righteousness, and Love Ministries?
Pastor Laurice Brooks is the pastor, and her husband is the overseer.
Right. And you're also well connected with the Ruffin family, right?
The Ruffin family, Rodney and Regretta Ruffin, Greater New St. Paul in Washington, D.C.
Right, right. So listen, let's talk about the early years. What were the early years like for you, and when did you start? I mean, how did you start playing the piano?
Well, Brother Phil, coming up in a preacher's house, being a preacher's kid, there was always pianos around, and even in the early years, when I say early, I'm talking 5, 6, 7 years old, at my grandmother's house. We're originally from Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
The Bethlehem Baptist Church in Richmond. And
Wow.
we actually had a pipe-driven organ and piano in the house.
Wow.
And my brother, the Reverend Vincent Allen, who's the current pastor of the Upper Room Baptist Church in Washington, we used to take turns pumping the pedals, and he would sit on the stool and play the keys, and then I would play the keys, he'd pump the pedals. And we'd switch over to the other side of the living room and kind of go up and down the keyboard. So we've always been driven to, and I've always been driven to the piano and the organ instruments at that early age even. You know.
So we said for about 5 to 7 years old, you started playing the piano?
Yes, 5 to
Wow. So who were some of your early mentors in music ministry?
Well, coming up back in those days, the Lord blessed me to cross paths with, needless to say, the one and only renowned Shirley Mackay Berkeley. And, of course, along with her came Theodore King. And
I remember.
Brother Henry Davis.
Wow.
And of course, Richard, the renowned Richard Smallwood.
Legends.
And various other groups. Bernard Mavry with the original
Yeah.
Tabernacle Echoes. Mabel Ray, back in the day, was one of the old D.C. organ players, out of the Jerusalem Baptist Church. And Henry Mansfield was one of the great organists of Washington, D.C. back in the day. He was affiliated with one of the St. Paul churches as well in Northeast. And they were the ones who I had a chance to sit, the different groups that I used to have a chance to watch coming to my dad's church, the Tabernacle Echoes, the Colmaneers back in the day, and various other groups and local. We didn't have a lot of gospel back then. Of course, the radio stations we had then was pretty much WST, Cal Hackett.
Right.
Back in the day.
That was before my time, I believe.
Yeah, way before your time.
I was born in 75, so when was Cal Hackett on the radio?
He was back in 60, 64, 3.
Right.
Back then, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about him. He was sick, wasn't he?
Yeah. He's doing well now. He's in Baltimore. Maryland Public Television, matter of fact.
Right.
Yeah. So
I remember you going around doing workshops, playing the piano for Shirley Berkeley.
Absolutely.
And I was like, man, this guy can play.
we traveled all over the country.
It was unbelievable.
all over the country.
And I thank God for my dad taking me around to see all these people.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this: how did you originally get hooked up with the GMWA?
Well, being a part of Mother Berkeley, and of course her group back in the day was the Berkeley Singers, the original Berkeley Singers. And one day I was at her house, as many folk have come by her house, the old address, 320 Seton Place,
Right.
Northeast. And a phone call came to the house, and it was by no other than the Reverend James Cleveland himself.
Is that right?
Sharing with her
his
vision for the Gospel Music Workshop of America. And inviting
Just
her.
before it got started?
Just before it got started, and invited her to come to California for an original meeting of the minds to see just how they would sort out putting it together, and having the opportunity to be sitting at that table when he called. Of course, when she got back from California, the first thing is, well, we got to put the first chapter together, and that's the DC chapter of the Gospel Music Workshop of America. So it kind of threw me right in the middle of the whole entire process of putting it together.
A lot of history there, man.
A lot of history there, man.
And you were in the room when it got
right
started.
Right in the room, man.
That's awesome.
Right in the
so
room.
let's switch gears for a minute. Everybody knows you. As a phenomenal musician, you've been doing things for a long time in the D.C. area and abroad. What are your hobbies?
Well, when I'm not in church, and of course my career originally had taken a direction to the law enforcement arena, being part of the Metropolitan Police Department. It's always been that music foundation there. But I have a love for automobiles. I'm an antique car person. I rode motorcycles for the police department, so I kind of got into the two-wheel vehicle scenario. Other than that, that's pretty much the hobby is automobiles. Just kind of antiques. Yeah, I have a few now. Yeah. Wow. 65 Mustang. And,
is that right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to come to your house. I need to come visit you.
They're hanging around.
65 Mustang.
Don't get a chance to take them out too often, but yeah, so just little things like that.
So how do you feel about being honored at the Musicians and Singers Fellowship?
I'm supercalifragilisticexpialidocious excited, about the whole idea of even being invited, being thought about enough to be a part of the process and the newness of all of the vision that's being put together by yourself and some other renowned musicians that you have become affiliated with and have grown with, to just be able to sit side by side, shoulder to shoulder to some of my counterparts that will be at that event. Sister Green and Myrna, some of the ones that are actually going to be there. I came up with them as well.
Right. Well, it's definitely
I'm honored.
It's definitely an honor to be able to do this. I don't know how it came about. The Lord just dropped it in my spirit around about November of 2016. Sure. And, I just said, hey, we're going to come together and we're going to do this event. We're just going to fellowship and eat and do whatever. And, and it's turned into this. And now we're looking at something that's beyond me coming up in 2 weeks. And 4 or 5 months down the road to the next one. We're looking at some and serve musicians and singers, as much as we possibly can. So, in our 2 minutes that we have left, what advice would you give to young musicians today?
To those who and we see them often as we travel around to the different churches, is to dedicate your talent and your craft to the work of the Lord, and not only because you can do what you do, but dedicate yourself as unto God to be committed to the ministries. One of the things that I have been not so much advised about, but brought to my attention, that there are not a lot of church-rooted, grounded musicians. There's a thing that's going along now where musicians, a lot of the younger musicians than myself, that is, who are more interested. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, in the recording industry, being known, name being out there, things. But the church is kind of starving for that committed musician that can be a part of what's going on in the local church as under the pastor and what you may have to work with there in the church, building the choirs and those kind of things. And I would. To me, the root of doing that type of thing kind of starts in the church. You hear a lot of the famous musicians and artists when they get to the mic and get the Oscars and the Emmys, and say, a lot of them say, I started in church. They may not have had parents who were ministers and that sort of thing, but they got their start on the church platform. So, learn your craft. Get out there and ask the questions. Practice makes perfect. And don't feel intimidated by other artists. You are who you are, and define who you are.
Amen.
And let the Lord do the rest from that point.
Amen.
So yeah.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for the invitation,
really
sir.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate the
y'all. The Reverend Willie B. Allen.
Yes, sir.
For more information on how to become a guest on Real Talk with Philip Carter, or for general inquiries, please email us at realtalkwithphilipcarter@yahoo.com. Tune in next Monday for another edition of Real Talk with Philip Carter.